right, all right. Hey, what's going on, everybody? As y'all know, it's a little bit after 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, 1 o'clock Pacific time, and we are live for another episode of Book Talk Live. Today, I am joined by another phenomenal guest who launched yesterday again, another Amazon #1 bestseller, Mr. Josias Jean-Pierre. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, listen, I could go on and on about some of the amazing things that I heard from you yesterday, heard about you yesterday, and the things that you've already been doing in the community. But it's on you. Tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Josias Jean-Pierre. I'm a youth activist out here in Seattle, Washington. I'm a speaker, influencer who travels, equip youth, talk to youth, and also on the front lines, fighting with issues of systemic issues going on in America today. It's impacting majority of the Black and Brown communities, Black and Brown people, and so we're working on bridging the gap. We're working on the front lines. We're working on bridging the gap of breaking the systemic issues that's on place that's not benefiting every citizen in America. I do a lot of work around. I sit in a lot of tables, several boards where I'm making sure that we are at the table, represented very much so. Because if we're not at the table, we're going to be on the menu. And for a long time in history, we see that Black people and Brown people were never at the table to be on the menu. And I was tired of seeing laws and policies being in place and Black voices not being heard at the table. Don't make change about my community if you don't know what's going on in my community. Don't talk about what's going on and you're not really listening to Black voices and Black tears and the brown pain and BIPOC communities about effective change. So I have a heart for youth, heart for change, a heart for systemic change, and a heart just to see liberty and justice for all.
Hey, man, absolutely, and that's very, very, very noble. Because one of the things you said, you got a heart for youth, and these days especially, there's a huge need for people to stand up for these youngsters, this generation. I've had at least 3 phone calls in the past week that were extremely disturbing. Um, some that people outside of our community wouldn't necessarily understand. But tell me, where did you get your passion for youth and for being an activist? Where did that come from?
Yeah, good question. My passion for being for youth and activists was just life experiences, life issues, life struggles. Growing up, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. I had a disability. I had an IEP. If you don't know what that is, it means I had an individual education plan. English is my second language. I started seeing, especially at the school I was going to, Tai High School, um, is 80% of the students could be people of color. But at the same time, we're still being called the minorities. How are we the minorities? And for the majority of the students in the school, this look like me in the BIPOC community. So I started seeing the impact of really what's going on in the school system. Representation matters. Representation is very important. When you look at what's going on today, is the fact that we don't have our representation going on. We don't see ourselves in a lot of places. And my passion for youth started at 17 years old. And then it started because of the fact that I was able to be a mentor to other kids. And I realized that these other kids who are out there had the same issues like me. I overcame it. I break through those barriers. I broke through those struggles. I broke through the negative affirmations that people were trying to tell me. Hearing from educators, give up, drop out, throw in the towel. Hearing from people who are supposed to be there for you is giving up on you because of what they see as limitations. And throughout the years, I see myself hitting every milestone. And I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna go back down the elevator and pick someone else back up and show them that there is still hope in the midst of the storm. Show them that they could still bounce back in the middle of the setback, and show them that listen, your beginning is not your end. You can still conquer this. You can still defeat this. So my passion for you started in that moment when I realized there was a brother by the name of Brother Rashad who was my mentor since 7th grade. And he came into my life at a time where really I was having identity crisis. I was trying to figure out who was I, who am I, what can I bring to the world, what value can I see to the world? At this point, I didn't see anybody who's like me in the school. At this point, I didn't see no Black or brown people in the school at this point. So for a long time, from that time frame, I thought it was illegal for Black and brown people to become teachers because you never seen it. And I remember when Brother Rashad came to the classroom in middle school, he put me in check the first time. One thing about having black mentors or having, people who look like you is, the look when you see the look. They don't got to talk about it. You know what you did wrong the first time. And that's what Brother Rashad did, right? But he did it out of love. And when we're done, he said, you know what? I want to mentor you. Here's my card. If you're ready, give me a call. And because of that impact, changing my life from, showing me what manhood is about, showing me what it means to be a man of valor, from boyhood to manhood, he showed me the whole process from 7th grade. And we have a message out there to our young boys, to our young boys who are trying to become young men, that, hey, you can't be this, you can't do that, you can't look like this. But he showed me what it means to be an authentic man. How to be a black man of valor, be an authentic man of valor, and walk out in your full calling, your full purpose as a black man. And because of that impact, that was the beginning stage for me to say, you know what? I got to pass the baton to somebody else.
Absolutely, man. Each one teach one. It's amazing that because a lot of people don't pick up that charge. We, like you said, there's a difference when you actually have that mentor that can guide you through manhood, not just saying you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, but actually giving you that example. So that's awesome. So salute out there to Brother Rashad. Wherever you are, if you still around, definitely salute. Because you changed this young man's life. Now, you touched on something yesterday. And I wanna kind of come back to it. You mentioned the brutality and the injustice that's going on. What was your experience, or have you had any experiences with that injustice hands on?
Yes. The first time I had it was back in 2018. I went to a church camp with my family church, out Callis Campground, where black people talk about diversity, and it's not a place out in Callis Campground, Lewis County. So I was there at going camping, and it was my 25th birthday. And leaving, I was with a friend of my friend named Jarrell Hosley, and we're leaving Callis Campground and go to King County, where a majority of the people are BIPOC communities in King County, this county here in King County. I can remember this day as if it was yesterday. We're driving, and we're on State Route 7, and from miles away, I see flashlights right behind me. From miles away, I pulled over. Jarrell says, "Hey, why you pull over for?" I was like, "Bro, I don't know. I see cops miles away, so I'm gonna pull over to get space to go through." You could have found they're pulling me over. Now, keep in mind, we're miles distance. So the cop put us over. He took his hand, hit the back of my car light, and I didn't know what that meant. And until someone told me that if a cop ever takes your hand, put it and hit the back of your tail light, that means that if you ever choose to drive away or run away with your vehicle, your handprint is on your tail light, so they can know that's the person who had his last fingerprint on your car. The officer came out, and he came to my driver's side, and he asked me for license registration. I asked the officer, "Hey, officer, why did I pull over?" He said, "You were speeding." Now, keep in mind, there's cars in front of me.
Yeah.
Cars in front of me. I'm going 25 miles an hour. He said I was going 50 miles an hour on a 25-mile zone. I have Waze app, and Waze tracks your speed and all that. And so I can't go 40 on a 25 if there's cars in front of me going 25 miles an hour. So I told the officer, I said, "Officer, I think this is wrong. Like, no, I wasn't going 40. I was going 25. He said, "Well, we got you at 40. I said, "Okay." My thing at that moment was, let me not argue, let me not debate. I just want to go home safely. I'm a two black men at an area where there's not a lot of black people. I have a vehicle that is tinted, with Haitian plates in the front. I represent Haiti very well on my car with Haitian plates in the front. And so at that moment, I feel like we're being racially profiled. So the officer got my ID, registration. He went back to his car, and he asked the question, "Who is this person in your passenger seat?" I said, "This is my friend Jarrell." And he goes, "We need to see his ID because there was a restraining order placed against you." I said, "If this is a traffic stop," I said this in my head, "if this is a traffic stop, why does it matter who's in the passenger seat? Yeah. Why is it even relevant if this is a traffic stop?" So at that moment, I knew it was racial profiling. So we, all of our stuff is in the backseat of my car. And Jarrell asked the officer, "Hey, officer, I'm about to go ahead and go to the back seat of the car, reach for my ID. Is that okay? The officer was silent. He did not respond. I told Jarrell, hey, brother, listen, you better not go back to the back of your car, get your ID until you get consent to do so. He asked again, silent. He asked again, silent. At that moment, I'm in my car, I'm crying, and I told the officer with everything within me, officer, he's going to the back seat of my car to get his ID, which is in his bag. Is that okay? Officer, yes, go ahead. The moment where Jarrell went to the backseat to get his ID from his car, you see the officer's hand on his gun, shuffling it right on his hip, as if he was struggling to pull it out. All I could do was cry, and I thought of every person who was Black who died in the hands of law enforcement. I thought of every individual who has reached and been compliant and has died from the hands of law enforcement. And the officer said, why are you crying? I said, you won't understand. You will not understand, officer. And then from there on, the officer went back. He looked at the ID of my friend, and he came back, and he said, sorry, wrong person. The birthday was different. Now, keep in mind, I couldn't drive. I was on the side of the parking lot for 30 minutes. I called folks from my church. I'm crying. I'm stuttering. I'm mumbling my words. I could not drive. Yeah. From that moment on, I was traumatized. I was so traumatized. I had to go to court and fight the ticket in court. I couldn't even fight it in court. I couldn't drive to court. I called my best friend, Chris Wilburn. And me and Chris, we go back since college. Like, you see Chris, you see me. You know, he's my sidekick. You know, and, I had to call Chris. Like, hey, Chris, brother, are you available on this day? He says, what's going on? I said, can you please drive me to Chehalis County? I have to go to court and fight the ticket in court. He went on and he said, yeah, sure. While we were driving, all I could do is really see this imagery playing in my head of what happened. Every time I see a cop car, I had to really was afraid. I was traumatized. And I couldn't heal from this process right at the moment. We got to court, and my friend took me to court. We got to court, and I was so shaken in the podium to the point where the judge says, hey, slow down. You got to breathe. Yeah. And at that moment, I didn't know how to slow down because I was still traumatized by this event to the point where I couldn't drive for a long time. If I was going to meet with friends, hey, I'm going to go to your house and you drive. Because I was so afraid of what happened to the point where I had an anxiety attack. And the anxiety attack led me to the hospital where I was in breathing tubes. And led me to the hospital because of anxiety attack. And every time the doctor trying to shoot me with needles, and thankfully I went to the hospital and my mom was at. I called my brother on the phone, like, hey, but I'm in the hospital. My brother calls my mom. I'm in the hospital for hours, and the hospital doesn't know what's going on. They're trying to shoot to get some blood. They can't. They're trying to get my blood pressure. They can't. But I'm turning cold. I'm very, very, very cold. But the only thing that was moving in my whole body was my heart. They did an EKG, did tests to see what's going on. My heart is moving, but nothing else was not moving. Man, there's no blood pressure. They couldn't take there's no blood coming out of me, but my heart was still moving. And the colder that I got, the more blankets they put over me. And it's to the point where it almost covered my head. And at that moment, I know that if you put a blanket over your head, what the pronunciation is, you're deceased. Yeah,
they're getting ready to pronounce you gone.
They're pronounce you gone. And I remember at this point in time where literally I'm in the hospital and I'm singing "It's Your Breath in Our Lungs." We pour out our praise, that gospel song, and everything within me in that moment, it just came out of me. Every worship song that was in at that moment came out of me. Everything, you know. And I remember speaking life, battling to try to speak my words. I was battling to speak my words. I was battling with just pronouncing things for a while, and everything. When I started singing the song, "It's Your Breath in Our Lungs," we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. That's when everything from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head went back to normal. Yeah. We got up from the hospital bed. I walked out, and our doctor was saying, "Hey, go back. What's going on? What happened?" And I told the doctor, I was like, "Hey, I'm good." But the doctor told me it was an anxiety attack. By the time my mother see me, all I told my mother was, "Mom, the enemy's attacking." The enemy is attacking. The enemy is attacking because I was traumatized from that event.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Listen, that is a powerful, powerful story, powerful testimony of what you've actually experienced. We're gonna take a really quick commercial break, just to because I can see that it's still weighing heavy on you. But when we come back, we want to hear more about what it is that you're doing in the community, and we're gonna talk about this book in detail.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back in about 2 and 2.
Everybody has a story, and so do you. We know that you've been through life, been through heartaches, been through pain, been through depression. You've thought about writing your book for years, wanting to help change lives because of the things that you've overcome. We don't know what your story is, but we can help you turn your story into a living, breathing book that creates opportunities for you to impact lives and change the world. The business of books is here to teach you the opportunities that come from your book, how to write your book, how to brand yourself, how to market your book, and how to get in front of the right people to sell that book. We have an amazing team of designers, an amazing team of editors. We have a team behind you to help you get through your first book and get it to the world so that the world knows you are here. So remember, everybody has a story. It's time to write yours.
Hey, and we are back. We are back. We are talking with none other than Mr. Josias Jean-Pierre, a community activist, poet, and as you've just heard his story, a man of passion and a man who has actually been through the things that he is fighting against. So let's talk about the community work that you do. Tell us a little bit about the community work that you have been a part of.
Yeah, I go inside these schools and do a lot of youth development training work, youth development work around these schools and the communities and organizations out here, doing training on really self-development work, how to have a mindset of a champion, how to have a mindset of bouncing back, and how to have a mindset of fighting in the midst of a storm, even when it's difficult. And the work I also do is I see a lot of boards where laws and policies are being made, but I make sure that there's a fight that's in the table where they hear the community's cry, the community's pain. So what I do a lot is I go into these meetings, school board meetings, city council meetings, or whatever it could be, and I listen to the voices of our communities and I bring it to the table and share those very things to the table what's been going on. So making sure that no voice is being left behind, that every voice counts, every voice matters, even if it means it's different from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned that that you go to those school board meetings, you go to the community events. How important do you think that is for people to do? Is it something that's exclusive only because you're Josias Jean-Pierre, or is this something that others can get involved in their communities?
Others can get involved in their communities. It's not exclusive at all. Wherever you are at in your community, you can always look at, open forums of the school board meetings. You can go to the city council meetings and see what's really going on, because really everything that happens a lot is in those meetings that you don't hear about from outside because it's only within. But you can get involved that way. It's going on. It's all open forums. School board meetings, city council meetings. If they have a town hall for the city to come in, this is a time where you can actually share your voice, talk about what you see, talk about the impact, be part of the solution.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. So how would somebody go about getting involved? Let's say in their communities, and then we're gonna go specifically to how they can help you in your community with the things that you're doing?
Got I'll say different ways you can get involved is, start small, right? Start small. You can, look at your city website and see what's available, see what's needed. Partner with organizations already that's out there that's already doing the work, being part of the solution, being part of the process, and get involved and get connected and just plant that seed so you can be part of the change that's happening. I always say, do not reinvent the wheel. If it's already an established organization and you see the vision, you catch it with the vision, run with it and be part of that solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So see what's already out there. And I'll touch on this one real quick with you, because what I see personally is that there's a lot of people who are starting something new when there's already organizations that are out there that are, organizing the protest. There's already organizations out there that are already talking to city council that are. So do you think that we could make more progress in the fight if there weren't? Do you think more organizations are better or fewer? And kind of break that down for us.
Good question. More hands equals light work.
Yeah.
So what I would say is this: you don't want to start something from brand new. Just start with something that's already established. If we got to stop seeing different organizations as competition, and I think that's a problem. We have too many chiefs, not enough Indians, and we got to stop seeing this individual company as a competition, and start seeing, hey, how can we come together as a whole to bring effective change? How can we come together as a community, as a company, to bring that change? If you have a skill set and we don't have, and we have a skill set you don't have, how can we come together and bring that change? Because at the end of the goal, the vision is to make a difference. And the vision is to go ahead and restore and change lives, impact lives for the better, impact our communities, so people after us don't have to repeat what we had to go through before then. Right? So people after us don't have to taste what we have tasted. People after us don't have to go ahead and see what we have seen. So more hands on deck equals light. More hands is light work. The more hands we have on deck, the lighter the work is going to be. But we need each other as a whole to come together. We need each other as a community to come together and not see one as a competition. Now, if you can see the vision of what the organization, be a part of that vision. Be a part of that. Because, it's not about you. It's not about the organization. It's not about them. It's about us as a community, us as a whole, fighting this issue, dismantling systemic oppression, systemic racism, systemic issues going on in the world today. So what I would say to anybody out there is this: figure out what is your why, right? When you're doing out there, you're doing the work, what is your why? Where can you get involved? And what is your message you have to bring to the table? And what can you bring to the table? Don't just come to be at the table, but come with something you could bring to the table to be part of the solution that needs to be happening to bring effective change. So if you want to, I'll say partner with communities, advanced community organizations, partner with different organizations out there, just so you can be part of the solution of bringing effective change.
Yeah. Come on now. Yeah, be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. And it's I think that that competition mode goes back. We can, if you're familiar with it, there's an old letter that was written by it was in 17th century, the Willie Lynch letter that talks about the separation and talks about it. And it's almost like the playbook has been ran for centuries now, and it's time to end that that systemic oppression, that systemic racism that is out there, and just bring it to light. So tell me, what are some of the things that you have been involved in recently, when it comes down to community, when it comes down to making those changes?
Yeah. First and foremost, I used to be part of the NAACP for Seattle chapter. I'm a member of NAACP. Making sure that we belong, we matter, how we could bring effective change within our communities. I also every year be part of the Martin King organization rally, where I have an opportunity to lead the rally, the front lines in that rally, leading the rally of Martin King. I'm also doing the community events and community organizations, to where I bring a different feel to the table of how we can move forward. We have a goal, we have a plan. Now, how can we execute that? how can we manifest that into action? And what does that look like? What does that mean? And how can we be unapologetic for our vision? How can we not water down our message just because people who are different from us may not like it? So how can we be passionate about what we stand for, even if it means we're standing by ourselves? And that's what I really push for in the community. A lot of times, a lot of people always ask me, Josias, you go to these rallies for Black Lives Matter, you go to rallies from the front lines, and why is this? And this is why I do what I do in the front lines, even the rally. First and foremost, let me just say this. Do not get my statement of Black Lives Matter mistaken for an organization. I'm going to say this clearly out loud. I do not support the organization, but I believe the statement. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about the lives you see every single day. The people you see in your schools, your communities, your workplace. I'm talking about them. I'm talking about the lives. I'm talking about the organization. So please do not get my message of Black Lives Matter compared to any organization out there because of this. Systemically, Black folks never mattered in America. We look at education, we could look at history, we could look at healthcare, we could look at employment, we could look at jobs. The fact we could look at funding aspect. Black people getting funding to start what they want to do. We could look at the fact that discrimination acts, whatever system you want to call out in America, Black and brown folks never mattered in America. Black folks were never relevant in America. They like our gifts and talents, but don't want to. But then yet has to do with our existence. They want to benefit what we could do, but not benefit of our voice and our pain, and hear our cry overall. So with that going on, when I'm in these rallies, right, we see Como 4 News coming out saying this aspect, but the Como 4 News don't show up when it's going on. They show up after the fact. And I remember last year how me and my friend Chris, one of my good friends, we went to the rally in Seattle. And after the rally, I did a live event. I talked about how the fact that, hey, Seattle's blowing up. This is what cops are doing. This is what's going on in Seattle. Do not believe it's the Black people doing this. These are white people, officers with bands in their hands, shooting and doing all this stuff going on. I have seen in the rallies where kids, youth, young adults, men are up in the front lines. Hey, officer, what's going on? Black Lives Matter. They're chanting and they're crying and they're being shot with tear gas. They're being pepper sprayed. They're being hosed down. This is what's going on, but we don't see that on TV. All we see is the aspect of the news has want to say and display. All we see is the aspect of the news want to show. So I go to the front lines because I want people to really know, hey, who's really a testimony? Is it the news who are not there or the people who are really there? Because if you talk to folks who are really there and what's going on, they'll say something different than what the news is portraying. And I want to make sure that the Black voices and the Black tears and the Black cry, the Black pain is not being watered down just for the media. So if you're going to tell a story what's going on, tell the whole story. If you're going to tell the whole story what's taking place in the event, tell the whole story. Because there was a point last year where before the protest ever happened, that Seattle PD had bricks thrown into buildings, tossed it into buildings, right? But then at the same location, people thought, oh man, it is the Black Lives Matter group that destroyed that property. But the video evidence that it was Seattle PD destroying property before the protest ever took place. But we don't see that though, and we don't hear that on the news.
Oh man, come on now. Listen, that's definitely not a good look. Because like you said, it's not the people who are fighting for justice are on the, like yourself, front line and just saying, hey, hear us out. Whereas it's being manipulated that the violence is being done by those who are on the front line. The violence is being done by the protesters, when that's far from the case. I remember one of the images I remember most is the lady who was standing there, and there were, it was a blockade of officers that had guns drawn, and she was just standing there like this with her hands out. And that's the image that I get of the protesters. So listen, man. Not only are you on the front line, but you're also very you write about it. You share your passion for creating change in your writings. Where did that come from?
Good question. I've been writing for 14 years. Since I was a freshman in high school, I've been writing. The inspiration of writing started by this organization called Freshest Roots. Tony Innoval and Edward Martinez, who started this organization. I remember being in high school and I was introduced to spoken word. I didn't know I had a gift to write until I started that organization, be part of that club after school in high school. I realized there was a gift within me to write. So from there on, I was doing gospel lyrics, doing Christian rap, traveling, doing performances on stage with different artists out there like Ravel and stuff like that. And from there on, I was like, you know what, God, how can I use this gift to create a bigger message and a bigger impact to share the pain and the stories of people who don't have the opportunity to share at the moment? How can I relay a message to show people, hey, this is what's going on, but this is the cry that we're trying to share. So throughout the years, over time, I came from gospel rap to love poetry, to love songs, to Christian poems, to now, I want this since 2015, I started doing justice poetry. And that motivation came up when I learned about Emmett Till, about how the fact the lady lied about Emmett Till, but she's still walking free. The lady who really responsible for the death of Emmett Till is still walking free today. And it kind of made me mad. I was frustrated. I was hurt. And I wasn't hurt because of the fact that I was more hurt of the fact that how do you lie about somebody, cause their death, and not be held responsible? And we also have to understand at the time of this event, white people and black people could not do anything together. And I realized at that moment that the moment when what happened is the fact that it's this. If you could just say what happened, and because your complexion is different, we will believe you. And there's too many people whose stories are not being heard because they're not being asked. There's too many people whose voices are being silent because of the fact that society has believed a different complexion, right? And if I could tell you how, if I could just tell you that I was afraid and this is why I did what I did, you could walk free. So when I seen Emmett Till and the lady who lied about Emmett Till, it hurt me. Then I looked at, just 21st century issues going on. You had a Trayvon Martin, the Mike Browns, the Eric Garner, Shanina Lyles, Emmett, all this going on. And I realized, man, this is the same struggle in a different generation. Because when we look at back then to compare to now, people say, well, slavery is abolished. Really? Is slavery really abolished, though? The fact that I could talk to an 80-year-old woman and she said, man, I've been facing this for 60 years. But we say slavery was abolished 400 years ago. The fact that I could talk to people who are much older than me and they say, man, we've been fighting the same fight for 60 years. We have no improvement, no progress whatsoever. We've been taking the front lines for a long time, for centuries and decades. We've been trying to outcry and pour out for centuries and decades. We've been trying to fight this fight to have equality for centuries and decades. Matter of fact, if we even look at the Pledge of Allegiance, the original Pledge of Allegiance, it never said I pledge allegiance to the flag. It says I pledge allegiance to my flag. The colors of the flag is red, white, and blue. Right? When we look at the national anthem, the national anthem there's more lyrics to the anthem that we don't sing.
Yeah.
Why is that though? Why do we only sing the first half of the national anthem, but we don't sing the whole anthem? It's because there are verses that we don't sing that is not equate to what's really going on. And I think the reason why we don't do that is because now we have to attack the root of America. I would say this, the reason why a lot of people don't hate a root canal, because it's more painful than having cavities. And it's the same as dealing with the issues in America. If we want to see effective change, dismantling issues, we have to deal with the root of the issue. The root of the issue is this: America is embedded with racism, hatred. It was not for equality for all, not for liberty for all, not for justice for all. It is embedded in the systemic issues of America. When the acronym I made for systems is this: seeing your slaves toil every moment. Generations after generations, Black and brown people is going to toil until we as a nation, as a country, as a whole, as people are standing together with the fight of seeing systemic change overall. Because you know what? To be honest with you, justice will not be justice until we have systemic justice. We'll stay fighting for justice until we have systemic justice. And until we have systemic justice, that's when we have justice.
Come on, man. Listen, that passion is there, and everything that you're saying is absolutely true. There are certain there's certain lyrics that are not sung. There's certain words that are not spoken, because it hides the original history, and the original history is extremely painful. So listen, we're going to take another quick commercial break. Then we will be back in about 2 and 2 to talk about how the book Our Cry for Justice came to be.
The BOBM family, I love y'all. You have supported me, and I don't even have words for how being in this environment has allowed me to really tap into some things that I didn't know I needed to tap into. And I thank you because you're okay with me being me. And I love people that are okay with me being me. I'm not always in the clouds. I laugh a lot. I'm kind of goofy. I'm kind of silly. But let me tell you, I'm serious about this piece right here. And I thank you for recognizing and being okay with the fact that I'm serious about this piece right here. So thank you. Thank you, Sugar Ray.
Listen, and we are back once again. We've been tuned in and talking to Josias Jean-Pierre, whose new book, Our Cry for Justice, is out now. It's a book of poetry. It is a book of passion. It's a book that is needed in times like this. Just like I said, over the past weekend, one of the kids that was in my youth program murdered in the streets, and salute and shout out to his family. Prayers go up for his family. I'll say his name, Red. That's what we all call him, Levante Craig Benford. We'll miss you, and you will always be in our hearts. Another young man found out today that he was murdered here in Texas, and so these stories continue going on. These tragedies continue happening, and it's not just something that happens once and people move on. No, these are families, these are lives that are being affected. And so again, Josiah, salute to you for your work in the community and your passion for bringing that next generation to a much better place. Before we continue, though, let's talk about the book and how the book came to be.
Yeah, the book came to be. This was a thought of mine since February of this year. Because my second book, I didn't realize it until now that my first two books actually go into sequence and order without even realizing it. So my first book is called The Power of Your Words. It talks about how the words you speak could determine who you attract, what you leave behind, and the mindset that you have. And the second book is called What Is Your Why Behind the Drive, where I talk about the motivation. I talk about the motivation, the inspiration, like what keeps you going to keep on going, even when you feel like you can't keep on going. What motivates you to drive you to keep on going? And a lot of people always ask me, telling me all the time growing up, well, Josiah, you do a lot. We heard that yesterday. You do a lot, and what gets you going to keep you going? Like, what's that fuel within you that says you got to keep doing this over and over and over again? So I wrote a book about it called What Is Your Why? And within my why, I talk about the movements, right? I talk about the movements and stuff like that. And I talk about a part of just Colin Kaepernick, Kaepernick taking the knee. I talk about how Kaepernick was ridiculed for taking the knee. He was, people saying, hey, if you take a knee, I can't respect the veteran. You can't respect the people who fought for this country taking the knee. But then yet Tim Tebow took a knee in 2012 and everybody was silent. And if we even look at it for the respect that we missed the fact, we always see was a black man who was mixed taking a knee. And we fail to understand that the man who told him to take a knee was a military veteran. the person who told him to take a knee is the one that had dinner with Kaepernick, and he says, hey, to better respect and honor our veterans, you should take a knee because how we honor and respect our veterans. And the first day when he took that knee, Nate Boyer, who was also a former long snapper in the NFL, was right behind him, standing behind him while he took that knee. So I asked the question, why wasn't he ridiculed as a veteran? Why wasn't people attacking him as a veteran who told Kaepernick to do this? We just missed the facts that he took a knee. No, you hate the fact that, hey, he didn't stand because what he's taking a knee for is now bringing issues that America wants to refuse to attack. And so with my experience in 2018, I talk about my experience in 2018, my chapter in that book called My Story about what happened in 2018 with me and my friend with law enforcement. And I said, you know what? I want to put a poem called Our Cry for Justice, because when we hear justice, all we think about is law enforcement. But when I say justice, I'm talking about every system in America. When I say justice, I'm talking about from our schools, how the fact that more money is being sent to prisons than it is going to our education system. How the fact that school to prison pipeline is a big thing in America today, and the fact that we build jails off of your 4th grade reading score if you were in 10th grade. We talk about the fact that, hey, justice and education to the point where why is it the fact the Department of Education states that the more poverty there is in the area, the more teachers we're going to have who don't have credentials to teach our kids. And this is what I talk about. When I talk about all that aspect, not just law enforcement, but I also want to attack law enforcement because of the fact that when we say that all lives matter, we're not just saying just Black Lives Matter. We're just saying all lives matter also. And that's what we're saying. So when we talk about the policing history, we have to understand the root of policing is rooted in slavery. The same badge that says police officers, the original name was slave patrols. White people touring and driving in Black neighborhoods. Society today in the 21st century, white officers are driving in Black neighborhoods. So we have to understand the root of the policing is in slavery. We're not saying that all cops are bad. I know good officers who are in the force. I know a lot of officers who are in the force who are good, who's about that change in their community. This is why they became an officer. But what we're saying is the bad cops should be left, should be fired, should be booked, and should not have an opportunity to go back to the force and work in the force. But what we're seeing today is that an officer could be fired and go to a different jurisdiction to work. And we're seeing that officers who have bad things under their name are getting paid $400,000, $500,000 a year. Here's a good example. In Seattle, there was an officer who pepper sprayed this young white girl. He got a raise. Just let that sink.
Yeah.
The officer who pepper sprayed this young white girl in the protest in 2020 in Seattle got a raise. He wasn't terminated. He didn't do anything. The innocent white girl who's in the rally for Black Lives Matter, who got pepper sprayed, he got a raise. And if we look at policing in itself, we gotta dismantle this blue code of silence. Blue code of silence, white shield. And the blue code of silence, if you don't know what that is saying that, hey, if you go ahead and do something that's not part of what we agreed to, I cannot snitch on you. I can't tell on you. And the blue code of silence, I believe, is a way for officers to go ahead and brutalize people of color because they know they could get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely not cool. And I've spoken with people on both sides of that conversation. Some really good officers who were scared to speak up because of the bullying that they would have to deal with, or because of the backlash that they would have to deal with. And then, as far as community organizers like yourself, saying, look, we're not saying that all officers are bad. So again, this conversation needs to be understood. It's not a conversation that all officers are bad. It's that those bad seeds are ruining it for the bunch, and not just for the bunch, but they're ruining it for communities. They're ruining it for good citizens. They're ruining it for people who have families, people who are scared to leave their homes, people who are scared to have those interactions. And I know, you're not the only one who has that that fright or that fear when you see an officer in your rearview mirror. I'm getting older, so it's not as bad. I'm kind of at the age where it's like, if it happens, it happens. It is what it is. But I also know that being a black man in America, at any point, the first thing you learn is put your hands on the steering wheel. Make sure that your IDs are out. And don't talk too loud, don't talk too fast, don't talk too slow. You have to talk just right, because all it takes is one officer having a bad day for you not to make it home to your family. Yeah, and that's not a good look at all. At all.
Yeah, and just with this book itself, Our Cry for Justice, every time incident going on, I mentor a lot of kids.
Yeah.
From the Seattle to Tacoma area, I mentor a lot of youth, and over and over again, I find myself parents calling me, "Hey, what's next, Josias? What's the talk for today? What's going on?" And I find myself trying to talk to these kids and hearing their cry, hearing their pain, hearing their fear, hearing their hurt about what's going on and how impacted they are and how they're afraid they are to just keep on continuing. And that's the reason why I always, that I need the book Our Cry for Justice, because over and over and over and over again, we're crying for justice. Over and over and over again, our babies are on the front lines fighting, taking these streets, trying to bring effective change. I said this yesterday. As a kid, I thought like a kid, I act like a kid. I did kid things. Today, kids are fighting in the front line. This is a movement of the youth taking place right now. This is a movement of young kids taking place right now. Our kids and our babies should not be fighting this stuff. They should be kids.
Yeah, that's so true. I was listening to the album by Kendrick Lamar. The last album on that song says it's a conversation, a theoretical conversation that he had with Tupac on there, and he said if you notice, there aren't any 30-year-old or above people that are in the front lines anymore, because it's usually the youth that are out there that are still finding their way, but that are angry about what's going on, because they've seen it. We as parents have seen it. We as adults have seen it. And it's like, when will this cycle end? When will the cycle end? Man, yesterday you shared something. You shared one of the poems from your book, and I really want people to know how powerful, how amazing, how intense this book is. The link to purchase Josiah's book is actually up. It's a square link, so we'll go ahead and make sure that you all have that in the comments, because it's such a phenomenal, such a powerful book. And as I always say, and I say this over and over and over again, some authors listen, some authors don't. Josias is definitely one of those authors that is listening. Do not go to Amazon to purchase a physical copy of the author's book. Purchase it directly from the author. That's how you support them. With that support, here's the difference. What Amazon will do is it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 months for that author to see any royalties. And they're looking at about 30 to 50% of what they actually charge for that book. Whereas you can get that book directly from the author. And that's how you truly support an author and artist, because really nobody who's viewing, nobody who's watching, nobody in the world would go to a job for 2 to 4 months before getting their first paycheck. And so we don't want the artists to experience that. So I'm going to go ahead and post a link in the comments. But I would love for you to share a piece of the poem that you shared with us yesterday.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. This spoken word piece is called Rest in Silence. I'm a black man walking. I'm a black man talking. The color of my skin will cause a white man to start stalking. I'm not violent, but we get beat with violence. My presence makes America uncomfortable. But when I am unarmed, I'm harmed. But mass shooters are unstoppable. Being in my own home will cause me to rest in peace. No-knock warrants will cause me to rest in peace. And sometimes I feel like a dead man walking, because America stays killing my peace. Over and over again, we have to breathe what they won't ever understand. Privilege says, that won't ever be me. But the non-privilege says that could have been me. Privilege says I can cause crime and do it with no repercussions. But the non-privilege says if I cause the same crime, get ready to face the repercussions. Privilege says I can storm the Capitol and get away with like it's a hobby. But the non-privilege says I can't storm the Capitol because what you see will be dead bodies. The color of my skin is already a crime, and at times I wonder, are we the gods walking this earth? Because we're getting beaten the same way Christ was crucified, hung on a tree. But the difference is our cry is, Abba, Father, forgive them, for they know what not they do. But instead, I can't breathe. No justice, no peace. Same story every time. Being black is not a crime. I wonder, why are we not impacted by the sun? Is it because we are the chosen ones in this world, picking design by the sun? I wonder, is our presence so powerful to reflect like a threat that America with 3 Ks can help but use a gun, as if my existence was a form of a weapon? Blue lights, red lights, white lights. It's a black man. Pop, pop, pop. Here's your death sentence.
Man. That's intense, but I felt every single word of that. Every single word of that. And listen, for those of you who are tuned in, do me a favor. Go to the link. The link is in the comments. Make sure you grab at least 2 copies. One for yourself and one for a friend or family member. It's Christmas time. And the only way to stop the senseless violence against Black and brown people, against minorities, is to get the word out there and stop being silent about what we're seeing, because we see it over and over and over again. And even though there's comfort in your home today, may not be comfort tomorrow. So make sure that you go support this young man. He has a brilliant and a bright future. So Josias, any last words before we close it out, man?
Yeah, please be a part of the solution. And for somebody asked me yesterday, what would I tell people who are not Black, who's trying to bring effective change to the system? Please do not deny your privilege. Do not deny your privilege. Your privilege is needed. You guys can do things that we cannot do. You guys have a voice where it's very powerful, and they'll listen to you guys. You know, if you want to be part of the solution, if you want to hear about the Black issues, Black struggle with the Black thoughts, ask the person who's different from you. But if you're going to ask that question, be willing to listen. Be willing to listen. Do not say, oh, I don't believe it because it doesn't happen to me. It won't happen to you. It's happened to us. And truth of the matter is some of us have to close our eyes to see these injustices going on. But Black and brown people, our eyes are open. We don't got to see it. We don't have to close our eyes to see it. It's living proof in our real lives every single day. PTSD for Black people is not post, it's present. And if you want to bring healing and be part of the solution for healing, be present with us and for us to stay with us.
There you have it, Mr. Josias Jean-Pierre. Listen, guys, we love y'all. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you share the video with others, share the book with others. And again, it's Christmas time. You never know who can be blessed by reading Josias' amazing book, Our Cry for Justice. All right. Love you guys.